TV47, the home of untold stories.
Now, talks of a plot to postpone the general election that is due in August next year, ostensibly to facilitate conclusion of the Building Bridges initiative process, is gathering pace, with a section of BBI proponents hinting at pushing the polls for a year. Tonight on Pundits Night, we discuss the race to 2022 and a possible postponement of the polls. Good evening. I'm Abu Bakr Abdullahi. Welcome to Pundits Night. As always, you the viewer, your voice matters, so does your opinion counts. Talk to us, send us a message on 22047. The hashtag to use is Pundits Night. Just a reminder of our guest is tonight. Farah Maalim is the former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Farah Maalim, good evening and thank you for making time for us on TV47 tonight.
Good evening, you're welcome.
All right, the preamble to this interview I stated is a plot to postpone the 2022 polls. Farah, in your view, are there compelling reasons to do so?
I think it's possible to make a case for that. For the very simple reason, we have a Constitution 2010. And the idea of having this Constitution was promulgation was done in 2010, was to try and cure some of the perennial problems that we have had in every election, mainly violence and a threat to have Kenya as a failed state also, ethnicity and a very do or die kind of a contestation. We had hoped that with the new Constitution in place, we were going to have elections that were going to be smooth and free of all the fears that we had before. In 2013, we had the elections and there were massive complaints of rigging, which I believe myself was the case. And the country almost became a failed state. We had a cycle of violence, we had problems in the country, and we got very close to going the way we went in 2007. Then we went to the 2017, hoping that maybe we will learn the teething problems of this new constitutional dispensation and the first election to be held under that constitution in 2017, we might end up doing better than we did before. We never did any good in 2017 either. We also had similar problems, big complaints about rigging of elections. Violence again. And I think a number of people in their own wisdom felt that, look, this winner-take-all kind of a contestation, democratic contestation we have in the country has got to come to an end, and we should have a system in which if you control 40% of the population, you should be part of the power structure. Or if you control 20%, if you control 60% or 55%, and I think there is a possibility. You can make a case for it because it's historical. It's been there for the last two elections, and we never got out of the woods. This new trial. I mean, constitutions are living documents. It's a continuously evolving thing. It's something that.
All right, Farah Maalim, let me ask you this. Whereas agreeably it is so the case that there is an election cycle trouble in Kenya, underlying issues that often lead to violence in the country. When, for instance, Kotu Secretary General Francis Atwoli says, if there is no BBI, we will postpone the election, that is more than sorting out the troubled election cycle.
There are those who will shout loud and in line with the typical careless political pronouncement that this country has come to live with for many decades now. And then there is the reality. I'm talking about the facts and the law. When you look at the facts and the law and the practice in this period, I think you can make a case for us to go into the next election and a new constitutional dispensation. There are a number of sticking points. One of the most sticking points is that, look, I was telling this morning in another interview that we had our first president, and there were no elections held, presidential elections held, until he died. And after he left, then his vice president took over, and there were no elections, no presidential elections in a number of subsequent elections until the multi-party era came in 1992. At the time when Kenyatta was here, for lack of a better word, I like to describe him as a responsive authoritarian. He was authoritarian, and he did not entertain any contestation on that top position, the CEO of the country. He believed it was his birthright because he worked for it and he fought in the struggle for independence. But anything below that, he made sure that you only enjoy the comfort of that office if you were elected by the people. So there was no rigging, I can tell you. There was almost zero rigging that time for the period he was there, for all the positions below him. But if you're his vice president and the people in your own constituency don't like you, it's your business. He did not try and save you. But then, of course, progressively, as multi-party system came in, the single party, de jure party, the queue voting or whatever, the queue line, we corrupted all that, and everything came up for grabs. So there is a total what do you call mistrust in the entire electoral system. So if we're going to get into a situation in which right now we have a number of positions, a possibility that you could have one or two or three parties in a coalition forming the government because of the nature of the structure of the constitution itself, then of course we will cure some of these problems. And I have a feeling the issues raised in BBI, a good number of those issues were substantive. They were logical. They touched the nerve of the problems in the country. There were some which were purely out of political greed and political authoritarianism, like the figure of 70 constituencies and the manner in which they were distributed, which I think will never see the light of the day. I don't think we need any more constituencies. This country has already more constituencies than it needs. But the rest of it, including government coming from parliament, the creation of a number of other offices, basically power centers. I'm talking about prime minister, deputy prime ministers, two deputy prime ministers, deputy president. I think it is, in a sense, in my opinion, going to create an element of responsiveness in the manner in which this country becomes a Kenya for all Kenyans, not just for those ones who are in power like we've seen for the last 10 years.
All right, Farah Maalim, we are talking of a possible postponement 13 months to the general election. And elections, as the nature in this country, are often emotive contests, as you have used it as a terminology, of one wanting to defeat another to occupy an office. Is it rather than coming too late, the realization that, hold on, there is an electoral justice that has not been rectified?
I think much as the idea itself has a lot of merits of going for a referendum and for dealing with a few sticking points like the additional offices, like the fact that government has to come from parliament, because right now we have a government that comes from outside parliament, and those people are exercising authority without any responsibility. They're not accountable to anybody. When we used to have ministers accountable to parliament, I think things used to be different in this country, and everybody felt as part of the government. But so coming this late hour, yes, there was a problem. There was a serious problem in the manner in which all these things were crafted. And I think the shocker, which everybody saw it, I was in a way also in a limited way involved in some of those things, and clearly was opposed to the idea of the role or the mandate of IEBC being usurped by the two people who went for the handshake, and I'm talking about Uhuru and Raila, in determining how many additional constituencies and where those constituencies should go. That we were all opposed to. I was opposed to it thoroughly. But of course, there were some very, very good, what do you call, provisions in there, like I said before. We need more time. There's a limit to how much time we can add, which is only 6 months at a time. I think the Constitution provides for that. You have to have 2/3 of both houses, which I don't think is going to be a big deal. The turnover in Parliament, in our Parliament, is as much as 85% every time. So you can rest assured, majority of the members of Parliament who are there now are not going to come back, both in the Senate and also in the other house. So an additional 6 months, and then an additional 6 months is a welcome kind of a sigh of relief for them to enjoy those benefits a little longer. So I don't think they're going to oppose it.
Farah, let me interject you at that point and ask you this. You talk of an extension of 6 months pending the approval of Parliament, of course, with the requirements. We're talking of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, the electoral body of the country, tasked with, among other things, holding a free and fair election. When that body's chairman appeared before the Senate Justice Legal Affairs Committee, he said from 2013 to 2017, the commission registered 5 million new voters. From 2017, the commission says registered only 140,000 voters. The reason he gave was budget and financial constraints. This is a pattern that was due from 2017, Farah Maalim, which sounds more or less of a delayed tactics to those who are interested in postponing these polls.
I guess you could say that. Yes, you could say that. The fact that IEBC was starved of cash, the fact that IEBC currently as constituted did not even have an adequate quorum, and that no efforts were made to try and fill in the slots that were vacant, is leaves a lot to be desired. There's no question about that. It leaves a lot to be desired. So I personally do see all those problems, yes. But again, politics is the art of possible, and I don't know if there's anything else that can be done. I mean, the compulsion is there. It's a compelling, what do you call, reason for doing this. They might end up making a justification through that and saying we'll let Parliament do its work, and if Parliament is going to approve this extension, then so be it. I mean, that's there in the Constitution. It's in one of the articles. I can't remember. I think Article 182 or 180 something. And there we are. I mean, look, you don't create an office, you don't create powers and authority in a given office, and when they exercise those powers and authority, you begin then looking for other excuses and say, no, this is wrong. Well, it's not a question of right or wrong. It's a question of the requisite office taking the decision on a matter that essentially has to be decided on. So I am not in Parliament myself now. I am not in Parliament because, more than anything else, because of the rigging, because many people like me believe that we won the elections last time. But again, when you look at the Constitution is a document. There has to be constitutionalism. There are certain powers and authorities in the Constitution that are vested in the two houses. And if they exercise it, you cannot go around condemning them. You just have to say, fair enough, let's see how it works. And I have a feeling that they might insist on giving that extension because they will say, look, we've had this track record. We've had violence on 2 previous elections. We need to do something about our Constitution right now to see if we can cure that. And I tend to agree with them on that. If anybody comes with that kind of a justification, whether all the stabbings and all the delays were done because they wanted to have this extension, so be it. You can get more than a year. It's not an open-ended thing.
All right, Farah, and part of that constitutional amendment is what the fronters of the BBI coined as the BBI Bill, which of course 2 months ago was declared unconstitutional by a 5-judge bench. The legal battle to appeal that starts tomorrow, Farah. Without getting to the nitty-gritties of the matters of law, in your own observation, Is there a mathematical chance that the appeal will overthrow what the earlier judges ruled on the BBI?
The appeal might overturn a few of the orders that were done. I mean, there were 23 grounds. But the presumption that the 23 grounds are all going to be overturned is a pipe dream, and it will never happen. Mm-hmm. And any of the 18 grounds or 19 grounds is sufficient to torpedo BBI until there's a total reevaluation of the whole thing and a new start. So the assumption that these judges are going to do certain magics and BBI is going to be on course again in its form and nature it is right now is not. I don't believe that will ever happen. But what I believe is that they got the process wrong in the first place. Mm-hmm. It will all be, a few of them are going to be overturned. Many of them are going to be sustained by the new judges. And because they're sustained, the only way option open to the proponents or the promoters of BBI is to start it afresh. Mm-hmm. And for them to start it afresh, it's going to take time again. They have to do it for a couple of months at least, even if they go the parliamentary way. So I think, in my opinion, they will have to start it afresh, but this time in line with the manner it is regulated in the Constitution. Now, we have another problem also. Mm-hmm. The constitutional provision is there, but we do not have a referendum act in the country. So even the manner in which it's going to be conducted, there has to be a piece of legislation, a statute, an act of parliament in place. And that also has got to be done, in my opinion. So there's quite a bit of an uphill task, but it can all be done also in a very short period of time. I mean, we've been there. We've done lots of laws, lots of pieces of legislation in a record time. And I think if you have a parliament and you have drafters who are willing to do the right things and everything is above board, a few months is all that we need to get all this in place and then hold a referendum. And then you take about a year before you hold the next election. You cannot hold 2 elections in 1 year. Mm-hmm. That is the rule.
All right, and given the kind of a legal challenge that this then posits, Farah Maalim, what kind of a dent does this leave on what President Uhuru Kenyatta has publicly on numerous times fronted as his legacy project of leaving a one united Kenya post-2022?
I think the only thing that Uhuru has a small chance of performing is what we have just said, to get constitutional amendments and have a referendum and have a free and fair elections in which everybody is going to be happy with the results and say this is the wish of the people of Kenya, and then go for his retirement. Mm-hmm. Other than that, there is nothing for all the years has been there to write home about. We have a terrible debt situation in the country, a balloon debt that I'm sure will be a Damocles, a sword of Damocles of our heads for the next God knows how many years, including the generations that are going to come after us. Mm-hmm. And we haven't done anything. The few infrastructural overblown infrastructural projects in which everybody knows are costing us 2 or 3 times what it should ordinarily cost in other parts of the world. So there is nothing, whether it's the Agenda 4 that he came with, there is nothing to write home about for Uhuru's legacy in this period of time here, Uhuru Ruto, whoever. So I think he has one chance of having a silver bullet and doing exactly what I was telling you right now, hold a referendum. Let that referendum be very fair and address what is very close to the hearts of Kenyans. A parliament, a government that comes from parliament, additional offices, free and fair elections in which the people's choices are the ones who are going to sit in those houses. And I think after that, you could go home and say, of all the bad situations, maybe this is one good thing that I will stay or linger in the memories of Kenyans for a long time to come.
And Farah, for purpose of fairness, the president often talks of what his administration has done in infrastructure, what he has done in expanding the economy at a macro level, just for purpose of fairness. Nonetheless, we are talking of a president, Farah Maalim, and a deputy equally, who 10 years ago, if not 8 years ago, promised of changing the country for the better. Opinion is divided whether that has happened, but they are hardly equally reading from a same political script.
Well, I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, the president will talk of infrastructural development in the country. At what cost that is? At how much of a debt, external debt? Kibaki left this place when we had only about $17 billion, both external and internal debt combined. We're now approaching 100 billion US dollars. And I bet the bulk of that money has gone into people's pockets. You know, it's all through commissions and it's all overblown what they call contracts. Infrastructure, yes, but at what cost? At 2 times, 3 times the cost. We have an SGR that costs more than any other SGR anywhere in the world. We have the free flow one, which is coming right now, the Nairobi superhighway one, which is coming from the airport. It's costing us a bomb. The World Bank wanted to finance it sometimes back under Kibaki's rule, and at that time we had a bill of about an estimation or a contract figure of about 23 billion Kenya shillings, and the World Bank felt it was too much. What are we doing it today at? More than twice that, and basically you could talk of infrastructure and then look at what happened. We have the SGR. We've killed the economy of Mombasa. We've killed the economy, the road transport, by forcing the government and forcing the Kenya Port Authority and all importers to use their train. People should have had this. It's supposed to be an integrated, multimodal kind of the transport system, and we thought we were trying to meet the standards that are there in the developed world and the second world. But here we are. You kill one sector of the economy by hopefully trying to promote another one, which is not doing any good, hardly doing any good. We're paying for it. It's a white elephant, I can tell you this, yeah. So the infrastructure you talk of, yeah, it's there as an infrastructure, but at what cost? What price? What have they added? What's the value addition into the economy of the country? There's nothing. There's zero value addition to the economy of the country. We've lost. If anything, by putting up what you call ICDs, dry ports out there, you're just creating a situation that's not that tenable. So to that extent, yes, it's a disaster. That's what I'm saying. The only legacy Uhuru can leave behind is to have an amended constitution right now that is going to say never again, such that we will never have a problem after elections in this country in the future, and the holding of a free and fair elections after that. Whether that takes an additional 6 months, through an extension of the term of parliament, or takes 1 more year. I think in both cases they are provided. So if in his own wisdom parliament chooses to do that, the compelling reasons, yes, there are compelling reasons. We cannot watch straight in the face and hope again we are going to have against hopes that we'll have an election that's not going to be wrought with violence. No, under this constitution it is bound to be wrought with violence.
All right, Farah Maalim, as we conclude, perhaps one final question. Let's talk of the race to 2022 politics. Will it be fair, Farah, to sum that observation as though it is, with respect to all the others, a duel between your one-time party leader, Raila Odinga, and William Ruto in 2022?
I doubt it. I actually look at, there's going to be a dark horse in the race. Kenyans know William Ruto very well. You can try, and a leopard does not change his spots so easy. Kenyans know Raila too. For far too long, Kenyans supported him, and they haven't seen any difference in him that essentially is going to promise a better future for this country. I have a feeling that the country will go for somebody else. Because those are, by the dint of the creation through media hype and everything else, that you have to choose between two devils, or rather two bad situations, is not a choice that should be given to Kenyans. And
Farah,
I think
it's more than a media hype. It is two leading politicians who, at least observably, are in the race for 2022. It's more than a hype from the media, is it, Farah?
Yeah, but media has a way. Media has a way. Look, we've lived in this country for all these years. And I can assure you, media focuses on sensationalism, and media is, and I'm hoping and praying that your own new media outlet is going to make a difference in the overall media environment in the country. But media has never what you call concentrated on substance and depth. Media has always concentrated on sensationalism and hyping and the rest of it. But if the day media goes into the real depths, what exactly has everybody? You see, Ruto used to come out there and talk about a double-digit growth. A double-digit growth is like basically kind of a song. I don't think he ever internalized and understood what he was talking about. And basically, we have the situation the way it is right now. The country has sunk very low.
All right, and Farah, let me interject you. When you say the country will go for a new person in the sense that he or she will be a newcomer to the political arena?
No. It could be one of the old ones. I mean, there are a number of people who are there who exude honesty and decency and a lot of things that essentially Kenyans very little or none, hardly any corruption history and the rest of it. So we will see. I mean, there are many people in the field out there. But the reality of the matter I'm trying to tell you is that, look, the stories that two gentlemen have been giving this country for such a long time, everybody knows right now it's just a big joke and ended up in the kind of debts we have and in the kind of the corruption there. And then each one of them is blaming the other one for as being the high priest of corruption in the country. But one thing is not questionable: they're both extremely wealthy. And nobody knows whether the kind of businesses that they engaged in. You don't become a multi-billionaire by selling chicken, and all this money comes in when you're in power. And the same thing also is when it comes to our friend who has, campaigned for the presidency ad infinitum for all these years, and he's also a very wealthy guy. And everybody knows that this is money that's made through politics. So essentially, you need something different. Look, Tanzania need the kind of miracles under Magufuli that was done. When Magufuli was being elected as the president of that country, he did not have the equivalent of 1 million Kenya shillings in his account. We need that kind of a evolutionary change in this country, for this country to be there for the better. But when you keep on getting these people who are children and sons of corruption, and all along, right from independence, they've just been around there. I don't want to use the word dynasty, but then they've always been able to change their spots. And today you have one of them saying, the hustler nation, trying to relate to the grassroots when all you've done all your life is to rob from the grassroots. So I don't think that is Kenyans would be that easily fooled, and many of us who have been there in the field and in the business for far too long. Out there to call the bluff, and this country needs something better than that. Otherwise, we are looking at disaster and revolt in this country right in the face. I mean, it's bad. We don't want to have something anywhere close to what happens when people, the common man, suffers the way the common man is suffering in this country, and the way the people in political might and power are going from one opulence to the other opulence in terms of wealth and accumulation and the rest of it. So I don't think Kenyans are going to do this for much longer period than now. I have a strong feeling that there is going to be a third force, a dark horse in there, and that dark horse is going to clinch the presidential votes. He might not, or she might not, clinch the overall members of parliament, and so that to have a majority in the house. No, that can always be formed through coalitions. And by the fact that there's going to be this additional officers, it's going to be easier dealing with 4 or 5 parties that can easily come together and create the winning coalition, or rather the ruling coalition for that matter. And we have seen what happens when you have a coalition government. We had a coalition government after the post-2007 elections. And that government was one of the best, in the sense that, each one is watching the other. Everybody's checkmating the other. One side tries to steal, the other side, blows the whistle. I think that's a good way. It's a good system for this country.
All right, Farah, Perhaps finally, you are one of the most experienced politicians from northern Kenya. We are talking of 2022. Are you yourself, as a politician, contemplating on vying in 2022?
Yes.
For which seat?
I have said it. Because of the changes that are going to be there, and I believe those changes are urgent and required. I think one needs to go back to the grassroots, and I intend to go and run for a parliamentary seat back at home.
All right, Farah Maalim, thank you for your time tonight on TV 47.
Thank you very much, Abubakar. It's a pleasure talking to you.
All right, Farah Maalim is the former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. We are talking of politics, the race to 2022, the BBI Appeal. And that brings us to the end of tonight's edition of Pundits Night. I am Abubakar Abdullahi on behalf of the entire team that made this production possible. Bye for now. Enjoy the rest of our programs tonight of all nights. Good night and God bless.
We value your feedback. If you would like to send questions, comments, or suggestions for your favorite TV47 shows, call us on telephone number 0740 047